Alright, it's been a whole week, but I finally got my engine. This is actually the old engine. So since I pulled it out with the transmission, there's a few things that I'm going to have to do first to separate it. So this top line right here goes to the inside line on the transmission. I'll need to unhook that. I'm going to take out all these bell housing bolts back here. It's kind of hard to see. My garage is kind of dark. I need to take off the axle from these bolts, or the extension for the axle, I guess. Maybe it's like an axle carrier to get the transmission off. Also, my new engine didn't come with any headers on it, so we'll have to take those off too. And then this little tool right here, I believe it's an oil filter wrench. My neighbor actually gave it to me, so I have no idea where to buy it. But let's see if I can get this one. It actually works great. To hold this pulley still while I broke these bolts loose. To get the water pump pulley off. I think I'm going to put a new water pump in the car. But maybe not. It doesn't look too hard to change. The other one doesn't look like it's leaking at all either. So maybe I won't do that. Here's the new engine. Just a couple things broken on it. Thermostat housing. That starter wire doesn't matter. I have that on my own harness. They just cut all these top hoses. One weird thing, I'm not sure if it's because this came out of a car that was 1 year newer or older or something, but this car has a power steering pump, and my car does not. So I'm not sure, maybe it's just all electric, I don't really know. These two pieces that I broke on the other engine, they came on this one, so that's nice. So I'm gonna get to work on the transmission. We're also gonna use the throttle body from this one because it already matches the computer and it's already should be on point with the computer, so we'll want to use that. I have everything to put new spark plugs in the new engine. I have a lot of work to do. I'll try to update as I go though. I'm going to make these videos a little shorter so I don't have the same problem that I'm having with part 1 of pulling the engine where I can't get it to upload. So there might be multiple parts to this. So I took these 4 bolts out of the throttle body right here. Just like that. Took the 4 bolts out, pulled it down. Okay, so to take off the intake, I took out these 10mm bolts here, here, a 10mm nut here, and a 10mm nut here. And then on the back side, here we have a 14mm bolt, just like that. I'm also going to have to disconnect this hose that runs from directly underneath the throttle body up to the top. You need to unhook that, then it'll come off. Whole throttle body. So I have done a few things to get the new motor ready. I put in some new spark plugs. The gap is 0.44 on this engine. I put in a new oil filter. I'm going to put in a new thermostat, and I'm going to use the housing off the old engine because this one's broken. the starter, I'm going to put her starter in. You want to make sure you keep these holes plugged. You don't want anything going down in there, but also don't forget your rags. Seen tons of videos of people forgetting their rags. But I'm just chipping away a little at a time. So I'm on the back side of the engine right now. I've taken all three 10mm bolts out of the heat shield. Taken all three of those out. And then I've taken all the 15mm nuts off of the exhaust studs right there. And I'm going to have to take one 12mm bolt off of here. I'm going to take off the one in the back there. And then this top cat will come off. I'm going to take off these two bolts right here to show the orientation. Here in the front of it. This is where the two O2 sensors come up at. And then I'll pull that off. So my method for doing this isn't the safest thing in the world, so I definitely would do something safer. My engine stand only has a 1-ton capacity, and since I have the engine and transmission hooked together, I don't want to overweight it. But my cherry picker has an 8-ton capacity, so we're using that instead. So underneath the transmission, there's this hole that has this inspection plate and a 10mm over there. And you can see inside of there these kind of star-shaped bolts, but they're actually 19mm, I believe. They go all the way around the flywheel and attach the flywheel to the torque converter inside the transmission. So I will get that one off, and then I will use a 22mm to spin this main crank bolt, and it'll just work it right around to the next one. And I'll take them all out, and then we'll be ready to start undoing bell housing bolt. I just want to correct myself on a couple of things. That was actually a 17mm. Still need to take this last hose off from here. And, oh yeah, I think this is part of the speedometer maybe. The 10mm bolt. The wire comes up and out to this plug right here. We'll need to get that on the other car. Another bolt right here. I'll probably just take those off and transfer it to the other car just like that. So this outside top hose comes around into the back hose on top, which goes straight down into the top of the, well, not the top, I guess, to that part of the tranny. And then this other side comes down to here. Actually goes to the heater core, so it's already unhooked. Alright guys, so I'm getting ready to separate this engine and tranny, and what I've done is used a motorcycle jack because it's got a nice flat lifting surface. I jacked up the transmission to the same level as the cherry picker, and I've strapped it so that it won't go anywhere. I'm going to take out that bolt. There's two more up here in the top, one more here. These are 17s. These are 17s. And this one's 14. And then there's a whole bunch of them along the bottom. Those are all also 14mm. And I think I already mentioned this, but you want to make sure you take out this speedometer sensor, I believe. And then over here, we have some maybe 15mm bolts. Let me check. No, I think those are 14s too. Yep, these ones right here are 14s too for this extension for the axle. There's another 17 here and some 14s down this side. And we'll take all those out and then separate it. So I don't have a mic on, but I just wanted to show something really quick. When you are bolting the torque converter in, you'll have to spin the flywheel around. So what I do is I just use a flat tip or a pry bar right up in there on the teeth of the flywheel, and then I just go a little bit at a time. And you'll know your bolts are lined up because you'll see that silver tab right there. It's actually part of the flywheel. And you can see down here that it's all lined up. It's all lined up down there now. So that'll work good. Maybe go a little more down. But that's one easy way to tell. Also, the bolts on the bottom of the transmission are slightly different than the ones that go up on top. Even though they're the same size, they're a little bit different bolts. So if it didn't thread in by hand, I didn't put it in that hole, and I just moved on to the next hole until I got all the bolts right, and everything's in now. It's all bolted up to the next transmission, or to the other motor. This is the AC compressor. We'll be taking that off because ours is still in the car. Also, don't forget to use some red Loctite on your torque converter bolts so that they don't back out, because that'll cause a lot of damage inside of there. Hey guys, it's the next day. I have the engine all put back together, ready to go back into the car. Everything's bolted up just like it was. Put the intake back on there. The catalytic converters are back on. All that stuff. It's ready.